In our previous video, we had a very brief look at the landscaping sculpting tools that we're going to use to make this pond look a little bit more realistic. So following on from the previous video, we're still in our development.tm model. And what I'd like you to do is make sure you just hit escape to make sure that nothing is selected. So close that. Hit escape, nothing is selected. Because I just want to see if this works right now. One of the things that might happen if you have something selected is it's not happening here because it's all within our window. Say I select this. If you have something selected and you try to use your orbiting navigation, you'll notice that it's a little bit strange and it's going to do all sorts of weird things. That's what's happening here. I'm holding down my shift, I'm holding down my middle mouse button. Something that doesn't fit in my entire viewport is selected and it's giving me weird behavior. Now, if I hit escape so that nothing is selected and I do the same thing, it just works so much better. So if you are getting a little annoyed at the fact that you can't figure out why sometimes you might not be navigating as fluidly as you please, make sure that nothing is selected. Okay, right, back to our pond. If we have a look at this, it's just a mesh. It's just part of the FBX. What we're going to do is we're going to head over to our left-hand side. We're going to escape out of our vegetation and landscape. We're going to look in our library. What we want is water. Now, the first thing that we do is we can say, I'd like water. Now, we have river 1, river 2. We have different types of water over here. And basically, it's the color, it's the clarity. You know, you could have a lake, you could have a river, and that kind of thing. This is going to be a cross between a pool and a pond. So I'm going to choose pool 02. I'm going to hold it, I'm going to choose it, and keeping my left mouse button down, I'm just going to drag it onto that mesh, that pond. Now notice that I have some options down at the bottom over here. We've got the pool. We've got the color, so you could go and you could change it slightly. If I click on it, you could, make it slightly darker, make it a little lighter. So you can change colors here and then store them so that you can use them again. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of leave it. So hit cancel there. Now we have the water depth. So if we just zoom in a little bit, this is a function of basically how deep your water is. And that means that the deeper down it gets, the less clear it gets. You might not be able to see tiles at the bottom of the pool, that kind of thing. So 3 meters for this pond is a bit deep. So I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to type 1.5. There we go. You'll notice that we have a little more thing over here. Here we can also change things like the turbidity. Now this is kind of the clarity, how much churning there is in the water. So if you have a low turbidity, it's very, very clear. If you have a high turbidity, it means that there's lots of movement in the water and there's lots of particles and it's not quite as clear. So you can change that if you want. I'm just going to leave it at 1%. Caustics are these little dancing happy things, like these little water pixies. And you can change their size over here. So if I zoom in a little more, I change the caustic size. You can see how that changes over there. And caustic's intensity as well. So you can change that. And that's basically the little glints off of the water surface. For us, it's not a huge thing, but if, for example, you were putting together a new highway with a roundabout with a fountain in the middle, you might want to make sure that the water looks very realistic. So it all depends on what you want to do. Right, so we're going to go back to pool 02. So if you notice that if I choose more, I end up with the water depth. To go back, all I do is I choose pool 02. Now we can start saying, well, we want more waves. So are there more waves or are there fewer waves? So let's say the waves are 22%. Again, you can go in and you can say, wave size. Do you want huge waves? How do we want the waves to flow? What's the flow speed? Wind gusts. Now, this is another thing. I mean, you can make this really, really, really photorealistic. I mean, you could have the wind gusts on. I'm going to put it on. And then whenever the wind goes, do you check that out? Did you see that right there? Whenever the wind blows, the water will move. It's actually quite amazing, and I get really excited about it. I hope you guys are too. So anyway, let's just leave that. We'll go back to pool 02. And then season, you can switch on or off. Now, basically, that just means the water kind of follows the season. Now, with a pool or a pond, it's not that big a deal. But for example, for a river, the water might get murkier during spring when all the snow melts into it and it brings lots of different particles and the turbidity is increased. So it all depends on what you want your end user, your end consumer to see. So right now, I've left the color alone. The water depth is 1.5 meter. Waves are at 22%. Season is on. Okay. Next up, just zoom in, use your mouse, and look underneath. Well, that's not what we expected. And that is what we're going to rectify in the next video.